The birthday dinner at Bella Vista had been unfolding with predictable precision. My father's 65th birthday, a private dining room, 25 guests, and my brother Ethan had been dominating the conversation for the past 40 minutes with an exhaustive breakdown of his new car financing. A BMW 3 Series, $52,000 purchase price, 5.9% interest rate over 72 months, and monthly payments he kept describing as totally manageable. My parents listened with rapt attention, asking questions about the leather seats and the premium sound system like he'd just negotiated a peace treaty. I'd been working through my risotto, offering polite nods when required, functionally invisible as always. Then Catherine Reynolds walked in apologizing for her tardiness, and the entire evening shifted. Catherine wasn't just my attorney. She was a real estate lawyer who'd handled all my property transactions for the past decade. She was also my father's former law school classmate, someone they'd kept in touch with for 40 years. Which made her the perfect witness to what was about to unfold. "Robert, happy birthday," Catherine said warmly, making her way to our table. She hugged my father, greeted my mother, then turned to me with a professional smile. "Lauren, I'm glad I caught you. I wanted to confirm. The $970,000 property title transferred completely into your name last week. The county recorder's office processed everything perfectly. You now have full unencumbered ownership." The dining room went silent. Ethan's wine glass stopped halfway to his lips. My mother's fork clattered against her plate. My father's face drained of color. "What property title?" my father whispered, his voice barely audible. I took a slow sip of my wine, letting the moment breathe. 10 years. 10 years of being dismissed, overlooked, and treated like the family underachiever while Ethan's every minor purchase became a milestone celebration. And now finally the truth was surfacing. "The property on Woodland Terrace," Catherine said pleasantly, pulling out her phone to check something. "The estate Lauren purchased a decade ago. The title was in a trust structure initially, but we've now transferred it to direct ownership. Clean title, no liens, fully paid off." Ethan found his voice first, confused and defensive. "Lauren doesn't own a property. She rents that condo near the hospital." "I rented that condo," I corrected calmly, "for 18 months during my surgical residency. Then I bought the house on Woodland Terrace. That was 10 years ago." My father's birthday cake sat untouched in the center of the table, 65 candles waiting to be lit. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the 6-bedroom estate I purchased for $970,000 in September 2014, I said evenly. "The one I've owned and lived in for the past 10 years. The number seemed to echo in the private dining room. My mother's hand flew to her chest. My father looked like he'd been physically struck. Ethan's carefully cultivated smile evaporated. "That's impossible," my mother breathed. "Where would you get money for $1 million property?" "From working," I said simply. "I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon at Metropolitan Medical Center. I've been on staff for 8 years. I make $485,000 a year before bonuses and consulting fees." Catherine nodded. Lauren's being modest. With her surgical bonuses, consulting work, and speaking fees, her annual income is closer to $620,000. She's one of the most sought-after cardiac surgeons in the state. $600,000? My father said slowly, like he was trying to translate a foreign language. "A year." "Last year specifically," I confirmed. "It varies depending on surgical volume and consulting projects, but that's the range." The silence that followed was profound. My mother looked like she might faint. My father stared at me like I was a stranger. Ethan looked somewhere between shocked and humiliated. "You never told us you bought a house," my mother finally said, her voice trembling. "I did tell you," I replied. "Multiple times. You didn't listen." Catherine's expression shifted from professional to concerned. "Wait, you didn't know about Lauren's property? I assumed you'd visited. The housewarming party was lovely." "What housewarming party?" my father demanded. "October 2014, Catherine said. "Beautiful event. Lauren had about 60 guests, colleagues, friends, other surgeons. I assumed family would be there." "We were never invited," my mother said sharply. "I sent invitations," I corrected quietly. "Engraved cards in the mail. You never responded. I assumed you weren't interested." My father's hands gripped the edge of the table. You're saying you've owned $1 million property for 10 years and we didn't know? You didn't know because you didn't pay attention, I said. There's a difference. Catherine checked her phone again. Lauren, while I have you decided about the Medical Plaza investment? The property on Riverside Boulevard? Your partners are eager to move forward. Medical Plaza? Ethan said, his voice strangled. Lauren and 4 other surgeons are purchasing a medical office building, Catherine explained. 3 floors, 22 exam rooms, state-of-the-art surgical suites. Lauren's share of the investment is $340,000. You have $340,000 to invest? My mother whispered. I paid off my primary residence 7 years ago, I said. I've been building capital since then. A medical plaza is a solid investment. We'll rent space to other physicians and generate steady income. My father's voice came out rough. You paid off a $970,000 mortgage? In 3 years, I confirmed. I made aggressive payments, directed every surgical bonus and consulting fee toward the principal. Finished 27 years ahead of schedule. Catherine smiled. Lauren's financial discipline is exceptional. That kind of commitment is rare even among high earners. Ethan's voice turned bitter. So you've just been secretly rich this whole time? I'm not rich, I said. I'm financially stable. There's a difference. And I wasn't keeping secrets. I was living my life. You all just assumed that because I wasn't broadcasting my achievements, I didn't have any. What achievements? My mother asked faintly. I considered the question. Considered all the milestones I'd tried to share that had been dismissed or ignored. Considered whether I even wanted to tell them anymore. I'm the chief of cardiothoracic surgery at Metropolitan, I said finally. I was promoted 3 years ago. I'm the youngest department chief in the hospital's history. I perform approximately 200 surgeries a year with a 98.7% success rate. I've published 43 papers in peer-reviewed journals. I teach surgical residents and medical students. I serve on 3 national surgical boards. Each fact landed like a stone. My parents sat frozen. Ethan looked like he wanted to disappear. Catherine continued. Lauren was also nominated for the American College of Surgeons Distinguished Service Award last year. And her research on minimally invasive valve replacement was featured in the New England Journal of Medicine. The New England Journal? My father said, his voice cracking. He was a physician himself. A family practitioner who'd always dreamed of publishing in major journals but never had. 2 papers, I confirmed. One in 2019, another in 2022. Both on surgical techniques I pioneered. My mother's colleague, Dr. Sandra Mitchell, approached our table with a warm smile. Lauren, I didn't know you'd be here. I wanted to thank you again for that consult last month. Your assessment saved my patient's life. I'm glad I could help, Sandra, I said. You're too modest, Sandra said. Your diagnostic skills are legendary. Half the physicians in this city call you for complex cardiac cases. He turned to my parents. You must be so proud. Lauren's reputation is sterling. The irony of the statement seemed to hang in the air. My parents looked stricken. Ethan stared at his plate. Very proud, my mother managed, her voice cracking. Sandra squeezed my shoulder and moved on. The silence she left behind was suffocating. I don't understand, my father finally said. How did we not know about any of this? Because you never asked, I said simply. Because every conversation about my life got redirected to Ethan. Because you assumed that since I wasn't constantly seeking validation, I must not have anything worth validating. Catherine shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps I should give you all some privacy. No, stay, I said. There's nothing private about this. It's just facts finally coming to light. My father's voice turned defensive. We've always supported your career, Lauren. Have you? I asked quietly. Can you tell me what hospital I work at? What my specialty is? What surgeries I perform? The silence was damning. My father's jaw worked. My mother looked away, tears forming. Metropolitan Medical Center, Catherine provided gently. Cardiothoracic surgery. She performs everything from coronary bypass to valve replacements to heart transplants. Lauren's waiting list is 6 months long because patients specifically request her. Heart transplants, my mother whispered. I performed my first transplant 4 years ago, I said. I've done 17 since then. All successful. Ethan stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. I need some air. Sit down, my father said sharply. Why? Ethan demanded. So I can hear more about how Lauren's perfect? How she owns a mansion while I'm financing a BMW. Your BMW is lovely, my mother said reflexively. It's a $52,000 car with a 72-month loan, I said. I'm not diminishing it, but I just paid $340,000 cash for a partial ownership stake in a medical building. The two aren't comparable. The comparison seemed to wound Ethan. He sat back down heavily, his face red. My father turned to Catherine. What else don't we know? Catherine hesitated, looking at me for permission. I nodded. Lauren owns the Woodland Terrace estate free and clear, valued at approximately $1.3 million now, Catherine said. She also owns 2 rental properties, a duplex and a small apartment building. Total real estate holdings of roughly $2.1 million. She has retirement accounts exceeding $580,000, investment accounts of approximately $420,000, and liquid assets of about $150,000. Her total net worth is approximately $3.2 million. The number seemed to suck all the oxygen from the room. My mother actually gasped. Ethan's face went from red to pale. My father looked like he might be sick. $3 million, my father repeated mechanically. 3.2 million, I corrected. Give or take, depending on market conditions. You're a multimillionaire, Ethan said. At 39 years old. 38, I corrected. I turn 39 next month. Not that you'd know. You haven't remembered my birthday in 6 years. The accusation landed hard. My mother started crying in earnest. My father's hands trembled. We remember your birthday, my mother protested weakly. Do you? I asked. Last year you sent a card 2 weeks late with Ethan's girlfriend's name on it because you grabbed the wrong envelope. The year before that, you forgot entirely until I called to thank you for the gift that never came. The specificity of the memories seemed to break something in my mother. Her sobs intensified. Catherine stood. I really should go. Lauren, I'll email you the final documents tomorrow. Thank you, Catherine, I said. For everything. She squeezed my hand once, shot a disapproving look at my parents and left. The absence of her professional presence somehow made the tension worse. My father found his voice, rough with emotion. What do you want from us, Lauren? Nothing, I said and realized it was true. I wanted you to be proud of me. I wanted you to notice my achievements. I wanted you to treat me like I mattered as much as Ethan. But I stopped wanting those things about 5 years ago. We do treat you like you matter, my mother insisted. Do you? I asked. You've spent 40 minutes tonight listening to Ethan describe his car payment. You didn't know I owned a $1.3 million estate. You didn't know I was department chief. You didn't know I'd published in the New England Journal. You didn't know I perform heart transplants. What exactly about that suggests I matter to you? The silence was absolute. Several other guests at nearby tables had stopped pretending not to listen. Everyone was watching now. We love you, my father said desperately. You love the idea of me, I corrected. The daughter you think I am, struggling, unremarkable, less impressive than Ethan. But that daughter doesn't exist. He never did. And I'm tired of being treated like her. I stood collecting my purse. My father reached for me. Lauren, please. Don't leave. It's my birthday. Then celebrate it, I said. With Ethan and his car payment. With the family members who actually pay attention to you. But I'm done pretending this is okay. What's not okay? My mother asked through her tears. All of it, I said. 10 years of invisibility. 10 years of achievements you ignored. 10 years of building a life you knew nothing about because you were too focused on Ethan to notice I existed. That's not fair, Ethan protested. What's not fair, I said, is having parents who celebrated your car lease like a lottery win but didn't know their other child was saving lives in the operating room. What's not fair is being a department chief at a major hospital and having your family think you're a failure. We never thought you were a failure, my father said. You just thought I was less successful than Ethan, I replied. Less worthy of attention. Less important. And you were catastrophically wrong. I walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard my mother call my name, but I didn't turn around. Outside, the evening air was cool and clear. My car, a Mercedes S-Class I'd bought 3 years ago, paid in cash, sat in the restaurant's valet area. The valet brought it around and I tipped him well before sliding into the driver's seat. The drive to Woodland Terrace took 18 minutes. I pulled through the iron gates of my property, past the landscaped gardens and parked in the 3-car garage. Inside, my house welcomed me with soaring ceilings and the warm glow of recessed lighting. 6 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, a home office where I reviewed surgical cases and wrote research papers. A library filled with medical journals. A wine cellar I'd spent 5 years curating. A master suite with a spa bathroom where I decompressed after 12-hour surgeries. Every room represented a choice I'd made, a dream I'd realized, a life I'd built. Not for my parents' approval. Not for recognition. Just because this was what I wanted. My phone started ringing. My mother. I let it go to voicemail. Then my father called. Voicemail again. A text from Ethan. You really had to ruin Dad's birthday? I set the phone down and walked through my house room by room. The formal dining room where I'd hosted dinner parties my parents had never attended. The home theater where I'd screened documentaries with colleagues. The guest wing that had housed visiting surgeons but never family. The anger I'd expected didn't come. Instead, there was just clarity. Cold, clean, undeniable clarity. I'd spent 10 years trying to make them see me. 10 years of gentle mentions and subtle invitations and hopeful moments where I'd thought maybe this time they'd notice. They'd care. They'd be proud. They hadn't noticed because they hadn't wanted to. Ethan was easier. His struggles were relatable, his achievements were understandable, his life fit their narrative. A daughter who quietly built a multi-million-dollar net worth while saving lives didn't fit the story they wanted to tell. My phone buzzed. A text from Catherine. You handled that with incredible grace. Proud of you. I smiled and texted back. Thank you for being there. Another buzz. My mother. Please call. We need to talk about what happened tonight. I stared at the message for a long moment, then set the phone aside without responding. Tomorrow there would be more calls. More texts. More demands for explanations and reconciliation. More attempts to rewrite 10 years of neglect into something that didn't indict their parenting. But tonight I stood in my paid-off estate in my 6-bedroom sanctuary and let myself feel the full weight of what I'd accomplished. I'd built a career saving lives. I'd achieved financial independence. I'd become department chief. I'd published groundbreaking research. I'd pioneered surgical techniques. I'd earned the respect of my peers and the gratitude of my patients. And I'd done it all without my parents' knowledge or support, which meant I didn't need those things to succeed. I never had. Tomorrow I'd return to the operating room. I'd perform surgeries. I'd save lives. I'd continue building the extraordinary career and life I'd created. But tonight I simply stood in my beautiful home and let myself feel proud. Not because my parents finally knew, but because I finally believed I didn't need them to.